One of my favourite things to eat is thin slices of salt beef that's hot and succulent and full of flavour. And I'm going to give you my recipe that's really reliable for doing your very own salt beef. We're talking about the beautiful brisket of beef, right? This is the tail end of a brisket of beef. Still to this day, it should be a much cheaper cut from beef. Beef is always expensive, but the brisket is really good value. We need to cure that. Why would we cure it? Because we want to extend the shelf life. We want to make it last longer. So if you go back a few hundred years, of course we didn't have fridges and freezers. We had things like curing. So we use things like salt and sugar for, you know, controlling any bugs on here, right? But not only that, it gives an incredible flavor as well, a beautiful juiciness. So let's show you how to make a beautiful brine. Brine is a salty water, a salty flavored water. So here I've got 2 liters of water. I'm bringing it to the boil. Why are we boiling it? Because essentially we want to make kind of a savory tea, an infusion. So the first part of the infusion is lovely herbs. You can pick and choose any herb you love. It could be, you know, rosemary, it could be bay. I'm using thyme. So thyme goes into the water. Then I'm going to go in with 3 cloves. This is quite powerful, right? But really perfumed and gorgeous. So in with the cloves. I've got 1 tablespoon of mustard seeds, which will give a fantastic mustardy flavour, which is delicious. And then gorgeous red peppercorns, 1 tablespoon. And then half a tablespoon of the lovely little allspice here. So we're going to go in with that, and that's going to create the flavour. Secondly, the cure, the salting, right? So we've got 200 grams of salt going in here. So 200 grams of salt to 2 litres of water will give you the right salinity that will not only flavour that beef in the most beautiful way, but give you that kind of protection in the curing that you need. Now, not only that, we're going to use kind of 2-tone curing, right? We're going to use sugar, 100 grams. So half the sugar to the salt. And then there's an optional curveball. And that is butcher's cure, right? 30 grams of butcher's cure. Now, why is this different? Yes, it is a salt, but it also has some other kind of nitrates in there that give you that pink colour. So that's an optional ingredient that goes in. Bring that to the boil, then switch it off, let it cool down because we don't want to be putting hot things on raw things. And here's one I did earlier, right? So here's a cure that I've done. We want to use a nice little glass or plastic container to put our beautiful beef, because what will happen is the brine will react with the metal in the pan, and we don't want that. So put that into your container and then cover it with that amazing brine. Look at the colour. Now, if you're going to double or quadruple this recipe, you don't actually have to double or quadruple the brine, right? The only rule with the brine, apart from those quantities, is make sure whatever meat you have is covered beautifully in this. So absolutely, if you had twice as much meat, you know, you'd still be able to cover it nice and easy. Now, to do its work, we need to help it a little bit. If you get like a skewer, a little knife, maybe a little carving fork, and just stab the meat all the way through, what's going to happen is that will allow that brine to penetrate all through the meat. Okay, so if it's floating, you can grab anything that will weigh it down and keep that meat submerged. So now we put that in the fridge for, wait for it, 5 days. 5 days. And this, of course, is why factories do it and restaurants do it. It doesn't happen so much in the home, but I promise you, you know, when you've cooked that and it's hot and juicy and tender and you're just carving it into a little sandwich, it's the best thing ever. So in the fridge we go, and then I'll show you what happens next. So look at this. It's had 5 days. This is one I've done, you know, earlier, obviously, but the texture and the colour has changed. And now we're going to cook it. So look, what I want to do now is drain this salt beef from all of this liquid. Pour all that away. And then I want to fill this up with fresh water. So cover it with fresh water. Have a little look at that. And that will let the excess salt kind of leach out. And that's very typical for anything that's been salted or brined. Over here, I've got half a pan of water coming to the boil. And we're now going to poach this beautiful salt beef, okay? So in this water, we're going to use some typical sort of fragrant ingredients. Celery, carrots, couple of carrots, a couple of celery sticks, like that. Just chop them up like that. We've got some onions, just quarter those. A little bit of bay leaf, some peppercorns. So look, just put the veggies in there. You know, a little teaspoon of black peppercorns, and that is going to be really tasty. In we go into the water. So get that beef in there, submerge it in the water. Right, I'm going to get a lid, and we're going to poach this nice and gently for 2.5 hours. So let that cook, and then I'll show you what to do next, because we've got some fun things to do. So the salt beef is cooked. It's had 2.5 hours, and I've literally just turned the heat off, and it's going to stay nice and warm, okay? So now we're going to fill it. It could be a sandwich. It could be a beautiful homemade bagel. But I want to show you just how you can embellish a very simple mustard. So yes, we all buy mustards. We get them in the jars, but you might have seen the mustard powder in these little tins, the dried mustard powder. So this is an English mustard powder. So I'm going to put a little bit of vinegar, white wine vinegar, into the mustard. I'm going to add some seasoning of salt and pepper and some sugar, but you could use honey as well. Really, really nice. Have a little taste. Delicious, delicious. Is it worth it? Yes. Even if you took everyday little pickles like this, right? I love pickles, these little dill pickles. What I quite like to do sometimes is redress these. Okay, so if I just take, let's say 3 or 4 for the moment, I can just slice these up at an angle like that, or you can use a little crinkle cutter if you've got one. So we're going to dress these up, and you can use any lovely fresh herb. So I love using dill, but it could be parsley. You could even use things like basil if you wanted to. So in we go. So just take a nice bit of that herb and get that in there and embellish it, right? Even things like chilies. So red, green, yellow chilies, really thinly sliced. And you'll thinly slice them, and they'll kind of pickle quite quickly. Look at that. So in we go. And I like, actually, to kiss it with a little olive oil. But it's almost like a little salad, look at that. So flavour, 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 texture, you know, freshness, excitement, taking the everyday kind of good or dreary sandwich and taking it to a place that is just insanely good. So look, we've got dressed up pickles, homemade mustards, right? We've got homemade bagels. Come on, enough talking, let's get filling, take it out. I like to put the meat on a board that's sitting on a tray to catch any of the juices so you don't get mess on the floor. Get a sharp carving knife and just slice nice thin slices all the way down the length of this beautiful cut of meat. Look at that. Look at the colour. I like to go nice and fine, but I want to generously fill the sandwich at the same time. So nice long strokes of the meat. Look at this, look at the colour, guys. Look at the texture. Can you see how we've taken that tough cut of meat and we've made it beautifully tender? Then we're going to take a bagel. These are homemade bagels. If you want the recipe for these beautiful bagels, then click the link somewhere. Cut the bagel. I like to butter it on both sides. I'm going to kiss it with that amazing homemade mustard. I'm going to go in with some pickles, and then we're going to go in with our amazing salt beef. Look at that, guys. Woohoo! Buttered bagel on top. Hello. There you go. A hot-filled salt beef bagel with dressed up pickles and homemade mustard. Happy bloomin' days. Let's get in there. Let's cut it in half. I know you're not supposed to, but I want to see what's going on in there. Look at this. Whoa. Woo! Look at that. Homemade salt beef. You've got to give this a try. Hello, you gorgeous people. Mr. Oliver here. The Naked Chef was 20 years ago. I was a much younger boy. I've still got the shirt. So today I'm gonna make one of the recipes that you told me you wanted me to cook. It's a really good meatball recipe. Like in the old days of the Naked Chef, I might get asked a few questions by my lovely sidekick, Maddie. In the old days, it was my director, producer Pat Llewellyn, who was an industry master at finding talent and making cooking shows. Sadly, she's no longer with us, but she was amazing. Let's do these meatballs. I've got 900 grams of meat. It's really nice to mix pork and beef. So first up, in a pestle and mortar, a generous amount of pepper, really good pinch of salt. The secret ingredient was half a teaspoon of cumin. Just half a teaspoon, you'll never quite pick up, but the depth of flavour, the savouriness, is going to make these meatballs the very best. That's why people went crazy about these meatballs. So a little half teaspoon of chilli to have that kind of hum, and then a little dried oregano.
Why didn't you look at the camera in The Naked Chef?
This is rosemary, by the way, a couple of sprigs. When I first started The Naked Chef, Programme 1, I was looking at camera, not off camera, and I was rubbish. So we secretly kind of put it in the bin. And then what's nice is when things go wrong and people are vulnerable, they start to maybe get a bit more creative. So that's when they started allowing me to use the cine film to sort of do the shopping sequences, and that's when I looked from camera to off camera because I was nervous. So then I'm looking at you and I'm telling you, not the world. So then I was able to sort of just disarm a bit and relax, and we were a bit more chatty. And then they would cut the music from my record collection into the programme. So from that massive failure, we just got a better show, and it worked really well, I think. So look, pound that up. It smells amazing. So that goes into the mincemeat, and then I'm gonna add 2 slices of breadcrumbs. And then what I've done, and I gave it to you in the recipe book as an optional, just fry off onions in a little olive oil and add a little bit of Dijon mustard. This gives you kind of almost like a meatloafy meatball. So we'll just mix that up, and then you can roll it into whatever size balls you like. Now the trick and the tip, because that's what The Naked Chef was all about. It was about getting cooking, having a go. The tip here was to use a little bit of water, wet hands. While you're rolling, you get nice, shiny, perfect balls.
When you were filming The Naked Chef, is it true you only used 1 camera?
Yeah, now guys, we use at least 2 cameras, but in The Naked Chef, we only had 1 camera. They had to do each recipe 3 times. So you'd spend a whole day doing 1 recipe. The poor cameraman was trying to keep up with me, and I'm moving around and I'm sort of doing this, and the camera's kind of doing that, and the camera's trying to keep up with me. And like, one of the things I probably would have said 20 years ago was like, if you want to stuff these balls, you can. So just put your thumb in the middle like that, and then you could put like a little kind of nugget of mozzarella in and then enclose it. So when you eat your balls, wow, there's this oozy, nice cheese inside. I would have said something like that. I would have said the word pucker quite a lot.
Why did you say that word so much?
The word pucker kind of became quite connected to me, and it was just part of our culture as teenagers. It was like, yeah, pucker, mate. That's pucker. The real deal, authentic. Let me wash my hands. So look, while I'm yapping, I've actually been ignoring my balls. And we're gonna go in with a really nice tomato sauce, turn the heat down, and we'll just start to simmer. So just mix these around. But this was the food that I was cooking at home as a sort of, 22-year-old. Okay, in here, I'm gonna put Parmesan, and then I'm gonna put some mozzarella. Now, it was not that common to get Parmesan that was fresh in supermarkets. It was not that common to get sun-dried tomatoes. It was not that common to get balsamic vinegar. A lot has changed in 20 years. I remember when I sort of used a little nutmeg on a bolognese once, and the whole country sold out of nutmeg. There was no nutmeg left in any supermarkets. Have a little look in here. I've put the mozzarella on top of the meatballs. I became famous for using the olive oil. People loved the olive oil. A little basil, just tear it into the sauce. I'm gonna whack this in the oven for about probably half an hour, 20 minutes at 180. The mozzarella's gonna just kind of ooze over those incredible balls. They'll go a little bit golden, and they'll just finish cooking in the middle in that beautiful sauce. Let's go and check out these amazing meatballs. Come on. Look at this. Beautiful. An absolute classic. You can't knock it. Juicy, big, fat, tasty balls. Really nice. Just grab some of this sauce. We'll toss that with the pasta, and that's going to be so tasty. Look at that. Hot and steamy, comfort food. Does the recipe stand up to time, 20 years? Definitely. Definitely. People still talk about this recipe now. Come on, let's get a ball on there. Yes. Just a little stroke of Parmesan cheese that will melt straight away. Come on. Oh, look at that. Really, really nice. Let's have a taste. I'm really pleased with that. One more question before I go.
Is it pucker?
It is definitely pucker. Definitely pucker. Cheers. See you in 20 years, right? I definitely won't be able to get the shirt on then. I'm going to show you one of the best pies that I know. First and foremost, we've got to get the filling done. I've got 3 onions here, peeled and sliced, okay? So that's in a pan with a little olive oil, salt and pepper. I want a sprig of rosemary. And then I've got 3 cloves of garlic. Just grate it on a grater. Or you could slice it up, but it's quite nice, I think. Or you could use one of those funny little garlic presses. So that goes into there. Like that. Mix it in. And at this point, I want a nice knob of butter. About 2 ounces. Straight in. While it's melting, I've got 2 sticks of celery that I've just finely sliced. 2 carrots, peeled and sliced. Mushrooms. Just slice them up. Don't use button mushrooms, because I hate them. Field mushrooms, portobello mushrooms. And you can kind of break them up in your hands a little bit as well. Good flavour. And then over here, I've got some brisket of beef. I've got inch dice of brisket of beef. And straight in there. So, at this point, we're just about there. A big pinch of pepper. A big pinch of salt. And then 1 can, just under a pint, of Guinness. Just going to pour that in. Guinness and red meat is genius. And I just want to stir in a heaped tablespoon of flour. And that's just to give it an element of body and thickness. All I have to do now is just get a little bit of water or beef stock and just top that up just a little bit so you can see the meat, but it's not covering it. Lid goes on. I'm going to put that in an oven at 180 degrees Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit, just to let all the flavours mix up. And you're going to get a really nice, robust stew, perfect either for a stew or for a filling. Right, this stew's been in for about 2 hours. Let's have a little look. What you really want for a perfect pie filling is a reasonably dry stew inside. If it's too wet, there's just going to be stock and juice pouring everywhere. So I'm going to leave that there, and I want to get into pastry mode. I'm cheating, because I'm actually going to use a pre-bought puff pastry. And when you go to supermarkets now, you can get all butter, pre-packed, pre-made puff pastry. And to be honest, I can't think of a situation where I'd ever make my own puff pastry. It's a right palaver. It needs quite a bit of experience and time to do it. So I'm just going to get it out onto there. And I want to just cut off 1/3 of it, just like that, for my lid. And then I want a little bit of flour. And this is an opportunity really to sort of go over some real basics of rolling. And when I was taught to do it, I was always taught to roll in front of you. So not sort of go like this or like that. Just move the pastry around to suit you and keep it lightly dusted so it's not going to stick. And I want to get this pastry rolled out to about 3 millimetres thick. Oh, nearly did it then. You nearly caught me. My old pastry teacher would kill me for that. Right, so we're there. All I want to do is take the pastry to one side, get my lovely dish, let the sides in here, like that, and have the excess hanging over. Now, once you've done that, we can start thinking about filling this little baby. On the cheese front, I've got 100 grams of cheddar cheese stirred into the stew. And all I want to do now is get this filling in here, like this. Look at that. Every last bit of it. And then very importantly, you want another 100 grams of cheese, or another handful, on the top. There you go. And that just makes a little cap on the top. And then, with this little bit of pastry, very quickly roll out your lid. You don't need it to be massive, you just need it to cover the exposed stew, really. And you can have it a little bit thicker. Crack an egg in there. First and foremost, I want to get my egg wash and just brush it around the outside here. And what this is going to do is going to kind of give you a nice seal between the lid of the pastry and the bottom of the pastry. And of course, that's just going to help to hold in all the juices and hold in the steam and the flavour. And then, as far as this lid's concerned, just score it lightly with a knife in a crisscross fashion, about 1 centimetre apart. It's not just to make it look pretty, actually. When the puff pastry cooks and it starts to puff up, it goes different directions and you kind of have more crispy bits. And it's like the best bit some ways. So just score that across like that. Egg wash this now. And then I'm going to pick this up and put this straight over the pie. And then with these bits, just pull them back over and crinkle this up. And absolutely, if you were taught officially in college to do this, you'd have been told to clean off the excess and crimp the sides. And I'm like, well, I don't want to throw away any stuff. I don't want to waste any stuff. People are always fighting over the pastry. Plus, I think it makes it look nice and rustic. Quaff it all up like that. And look at that. That is a beautiful pie. I'm now going to put that in the oven, back at 180, 350 Fahrenheit. And I'll cook that for about 40 minutes or until bubbling and golden. And that is a good one. Right, I've got some nice frozen peas, dare I say it. Frozen peas are fantastic, actually. Tossed in some butter, and that is it. My pie's had about 40 minutes in here. Have a look at that. Beautiful. Let's serve this little baby up. Go on, right over the top. Wow, beautiful. Love a steak. People love steak, and definitely one of the things that we've picked up looking at the parts of the world where people live the longest, most productive lives is that they're not eating loads and loads of meat. Once, twice a week, max. So quality, not quantity, definitely important. I've got it out of the fridge about half an hour at least before I want to cook it. You don't want to take things out of a cold place and put it in a hot place. It's going to go tough and not cook as beautifully, so we're getting that out. To go with the steak, I've already got 150 grams of whole grain rice on the go. It needs to boil for 25 minutes. What we're going to do is create some really decent flavour. Now, first up, I've got a jar here of peppers. You can get these in all the supermarkets. They've been grilled and peeled. 200 grams, OK? So you've got one of your 5 a day here already. But that juice, now you can throw that, by all means, in the bin, but that is all flavour. So that is going to go into our rice. It's got smoky, salty goodness in there. Let's have it. Simply tear open the peppers and stick them on the griddle pan. So get it nice and hot, and it's going to give you that lovely charred flavour. Also, it's been in a jar, so it kind of needs waking up a little bit and softening up a little bit. So I'm going to lay the peppers in here. Now, I've seen people cooking in griddle pans and pouring in a load of oil. Don't do it. You don't need it. A dry pan. Get it really, really hot. And of course, by not using fat, we're not wasting calories. So let's just char those peppers. Bring them back to life. And then let's get on the meat. All I want to do here is just push it down flat. So we're beginning to tenderise it. I want to season it with salt. Quite a nice amount of black pepper, because we know that pepper and steak love each other. And just a little bit of oil, just to rub around the outside. So I'm just going to pat that all over, and that's a really lovely kind of outside kind of crust that we can create on the steak, and that's all we need, OK? So the peppers are done, put them on a platter and save them to serve with the steak later. So what I want to do is dress the peppers in the actual juices coming out of the steak. So it's really about being clever about flavour. That's all looking good. The steak can go straight on the bars here. Push it down. Let's get nice char marks. I'll turn it 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get a nice crisscross sensation on the outside of the steak. Push it down, and we should be laughing. Again, no oil going in this pan, just the minimal oil on that steak and high seasoning. It's going to be great. It'll just need 2 to 3 minutes on each side for medium rare. Beautiful. So next up, this kind of brown rice tabbouleh, okay? This is a brilliant way to love herbs. I'm doing my superfood version of tabbouleh. It's a Middle Eastern dish, traditionally made with herbs and bulgur wheat, but I'm using brown rice instead. So to start off, grab yourself a small bunch of parsley and mint. Right, we're going to go to the most basic chopping action ever, okay? And that's the cross chopping. Hand here, and then holding the handle here, and just rocking it through like that. This is so simple. And basically keep doing it until it's nice and fine. Next, chop up 2 spring onions. And then for the dressing, you'll need the zest and juice of 1 lemon and a glug of cold-pressed extra virgin olive oil. So we're doing double lemon juice to olive oil. I want to get it really zingy. So look, the brown rice is done. It's had about 25 minutes. All I want to do is drain that. But when the rice is hot like this is the perfect time to dress it in all that gorgeous stuff. Add a pinch of cayenne pepper to your olive oil and lemon juice. Then go in with the rice and all the herbs. Of course, you can serve it hot, warm, or cold. It'll keep in the fridge as well, which is really, really nice. But I always think sort of room temperature is absolutely the best. Actually smells fantastic. Let's have a little taste. Nice. Right, I do need to season it, but I'm going to use feta cheese later. And if you buy feta cheese in these little tubs here, there's a little tip. There's that juice in there. The smallest little swig of that juice that the feta cheese comes in is amazing, because obviously it's seasoning, but it's more than that, it's flavour. So we'll take that. We're always taking flavour, and we don't want to waste. The steak is beautiful. I want to put that straight on to our peppers here. Can you see it resting? And that's what we want, where it's resting and there's just juices pouring out of it, okay? That's gonna kind of sink in through the peppers, so you're gonna get peppery beef juices. It's gonna be absolutely lovely. Next, toast up 25 grams of unsalted pistachios on a medium heat. Nuts are an easy way to add a nutrition boost to any meal, so they're going in. While that's happening, pomegranates. I just want half a pomegranate. I'm a massive fan. I absolutely love them. And I want to get their flavour into the salad. Little capsules of sweetness. Hold it in my hand like that, put it like that, and just get a spoon and give it a ruddy good spanking. So all those little capsules just sort of bust and burst. Pomegranates are a source of B vitamins, which help keep our metabolism, immune and nervous systems healthy. And then just stir that through. Imagine just eating the salad, and then you come across that beautiful little capsule of sweetness, boop, and it's just shock and surprise, but a really nice one, so I like that. Time to remove your pistachios from the pan and give them a good old bash up in a pestle and mortar. I'm just going to sprinkle into the salad. So, this is looking good to go. I'm just going to pile that beautiful salad onto there. The steak here has been resting. You can see how much juice has come out here. If I just put the peppers to one side, there's loads of that good stuff there. So the peppers here, we can just dress that in all the beautiful juices. Thinly slice that gorgeous juicy steak and drape it all over that lovely rice salad. And then I want just a tiny bit of feta cheese, literally 10 grams, just sprinkled over the top like that. I love feta. It's one of the lowest fat cheeses. It looks beautiful, and it's kind of nice to use it like a seasoning. Add the feta. It's a really tasty way to get some more calcium into your diet. Once the feta's gone on, a final little sprinkle of pistachio. And there, my friends, is the lovely grilled steak and peppers with jeweled tabbouleh rice. That's an absolute crowd pleaser. And this just goes to show how a little steak can go a long way. It's totally balanced, it's nutritious. So all round, it's a great, healthy, delicious, beautiful dinner. Look at that. Just gonna have to eat it now. That super fast, super delicious grilled steak and feta dinner comes in at just under 600 calories per portion. It's good. It's really good. Steak night, and I want to show you the best steak ever. This is the ultimate T-bone steak, sirloin, fillet, beautiful beef dripping potatoes, and the best condiment ever, salsa verde. Let's do this. First up, I've used some fantastic red skin potatoes. I've cut them into like inch chunks, skin on, right? And then I've whacked them in water with 2 beautiful bulbs of garlic. Now, by parboiling them for about 5 or 6 minutes, you soften the potatoes, but most importantly, you convert that garlic to being creamy on the inside. And when it goes in the pan with the beautiful beef juices, it's gonna be caramelized and gorgeous. So spuds and garlic are on. Back to the steak. What you want to say to your butcher is, can I have a lovely T-bone steak? I want it at least 2 to 2.5 inches thick, 1 big chunk. You get different cuts. You get the sirloin, you get the fillet. This is going to be an epic thing. Get your steak out of the fridge an hour before you cook it. Very important. Now, we can see there's different thicknesses of fat here. Even it out, slice up this fat, put it in a pan. It's going to give you more flavour, because you're cooking steak in steak fat, but also this is going to go on your potatoes, so it's like a double whammy. I'm going to season it generously with black pepper to not just flavour it, but help create a bark, a really dark, gnarly outer skin, leaving you with a juicy, gorgeous, sumptuous inside. Sweep the crispy bits to the side, and then place this steak fat side down. The girth or thickness of the steak is holding itself up. Now, drain the potatoes. One of the benefits of being on the end of a pier, we don't need a sink. Give them a good old shake. So what I'll do is get a bigger pan on, a little bit of olive oil, then go in with our potatoes. What I want to do is season it, and then in with the crispy bits. They got a lot of love to give still. If you have a look in this pan, we can steal a little bit of this beef fat. And this is going to make the best crispy potatoes ever. So back on the heat to get golden and crisp all over. That might take 30 minutes, depending on how big your pan is. So look, back to this steak now. Let's have a little look. Sizzling, dancing fat, gorgeous. So now, onto the bone side. You're going to get that heat going through the middle of the fillet and the sirloin. Also, bone marrow will find its way out, and it will end up kind of getting rubbed on the outside of the steaks, and it's going to be delicious. See that fat? We'll put this meat straight into it. We're going to use this rosemary brush, dab it in that fat, and I can smell already the story is changing. Cook this steak 1 minute each side, and you want to keep as much juice inside that steak as possible. So 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, kissing it with rosemary again. This steak now has had about 4 minutes on each side. I'm going to cook it medium to rare. So that will come off the heat now, and we're going to let that rest, okay? Give it one last kiss of oil to protect the meat. It can dry out if you don't give it a little oil. Just look at these amazing potatoes. I want to add some lovely thyme. If you put the thyme in for the last 10 minutes, you get the most delicious flavour. It's so, so good. So we'll put that back on the heat. That's just now on a low heat, just ticking away. So amazing potatoes, amazing steak. The perfect thing to go with it is the classic salsa verde. It's normally with parsley. I love it with mint also. Grab it at the top and just rip it off. So then we want to add some other fragrant bits and pieces. Gherkins, 2 or 3. Then anchovy, the thing that so divides people. You will not taste the anchovy, but it will give an incredible depth of flavour. Garlic, just a little half clove of garlic, a heaped teaspoon of capers. Now what we do is start to slice up. Once finely chopped, add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, a glug of extra virgin olive oil, and a splash of good vinegar. This is like the Italians' equivalent of horseradish sauce, mint sauce. Beautiful. And now, time to serve. You can see how the juices have rested out. We love all that. So this is when your friends and family are around. You do not want them to miss out on this bit. Use your carving knife to follow the bone and take off the fillet. Then we've got the other side of the bone. And off it comes. Take the fillet, and I can just slice it at an angle. You can go a little bit thicker now on the sirloin. Lay it out with pride. Take the juices, and I will pour that all over the steaks. The salsa verde. Look at that. Crispy potatoes. Oh, my Lord. That's what it's about. Outrageous. Come on, enough talking, let's just do it. Get yourself one of those gorgeous potatoes. A little bit of steak, nick a bit of the garlic. That beef, melt in your mouth. Every mouthful, you've got flavour, 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 flavour. And that salsa verde is an absolute game changer. The tang of the vinegar and the cornichon, the capers, the garlic. Wow. There you go, lovely people. I know you love your steak and chips nights, but why not take a little bit of inspiration from our Italian brothers and sisters? Cheers. We're gonna make the most incredible British burger, the most amazing homemade patty, red Leicester burger sauce, pimped up with pulled oxtail. A British burger like you've never seen before. We're gonna start with oxtail. And before you run away and say, no, you've got to stay with me on this because it's next level stuff. So I've got 1 kilo of oxtail here. You can get it in any butcher's. So some basic seasoning with salt and pepper. And then we're gonna go into a pan and we're gonna brown it off. So you have the benefit of the bone and the marrow, and it gives you a kind of depth of flavour that's amazing. Let's get it really dark and golden and gorgeous. I want this amazing ultimate British burger to represent Britain. Cue the music. That's enough. And I want it to have texture, so patty, melted cheese, pulled meats. But when we put it together with the burger sauce, I want to be able, wait for it, to dip it in gravy. Filthy. I love it. So that's going to make the pulled meat and the gravy. So as that cooks, I'm going to add some onions and a really good shake of Worcestershire sauce. And then what I want to do, because remember we are doing a gravy, 4 tablespoons of flour. So I'll take the oxtail out now and put it into a little casserole pan, just caring enough to start getting colour even on the flour. And it's all going to add to the richness of the gravy. A little seasoning and 1.5 litres of vegetable, chicken stock, beef stock, whatever you got to hand. So let's just take that stock over the oxtail. And then I'm just going to cover it in a little greaseproof paper and then bring in the tin foil, cover it nice and tight like that, into the oven at 180 degrees Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit, and just let that oxtail slow cook for 3 to 4 hours until the meat falls off the bone. And this is going to give you loads of time to get on with your weekend, go do some stuff, knowing full well that something very special is about to happen. So when the time is up, have a look at that, guys. Oh, it smells so good. And you know what? It reminds me of my dear old nanny Betty. She used to love cooking this. The meat just falls off the bone. It's so, so good. Here is the gravy, by the way. Just skim off this fat and then push the gravy through a coarse sieve. You don't have to do it, but I quite like a finer gravy, right? I think it's a bit more elegant. And then these chunky bits can go back into our pulled meat. Just put a fresh swig of Worcestershire sauce in there. And then you can take a herb like parsley just to give it a little bit of contrast. And that on our burger is going to be amazing. I'll pop that in the oven and turn the oven off, okay, just to keep it warm. So, let's make the burger sauce. Let's get our pickle. It will give you tang and crunch. Then lettuce is surprisingly sweet. And then tomatoes. Get an overripe one, and that'll have wonderful flavour. Season it with salt and pepper, and then just dress it in a little yogurt. Look at that. I love it. So now is patty time. I love the chuck steak. It has a natural mix of fat and muscle and flavour. Don't overthink it. Roll it up, squash it out. Happy days. 4 fine little patties. I'm just going to season it, and then we go into the pan. So give it about 1.5 minutes, and then turn it. Get some English mustard. And you want a little teaspoon on there. English mustard is quite hot, but actually when it cooks, it calms. And we're going to flip it again. So it's going to have 4 turns. 1.5 minutes, brush, 1.5 minutes, right? And then just lay your red Leicester cheese over the top. And now, very importantly, find a little lid to put on top. The great thing about that bowl
is it creates like a little bit of steam that just makes the cheese ooze. Jiggle that bun around in some of that rendered fat and gorgeousness. A nice bun only requires a few little minutes. It's the time to show you the ultimate burger. Let's get the oxtail out of the oven. Look at that. Oh my Lord. We take the burger sauce, 2 little spoons. Look at that. And that ooze is a thing of beauty. Incredible oxtail. Oh my Lord, behave. And then a little bun on top. But we ain't done yet, because remember, we made that gravy. And then you dip it. There's no polite way to eat this. It's gonna be messy, but it's gonna be one of the nicest things you eat. Pure indulgence. Steak night, date night. It's really quick, it's really delicious. I want to share with you a brilliant technique to making the perfect sirloin steak, right? Tender, melt in your mouth, cut like butter, right? And then to elevate it, make it exciting, I'm going to make my version of a red chimichurri sauce, full of flavour, full of life. It takes your everyday steak to the next level. So look, I've got a pan here, non-stick, large, on a medium heat. Let's start with the steak. Beautiful sirloin of beef. It's nicely marbled, and we've got this lovely fat here. This is mainly grass-fed, which is fantastic. But what we have here, can you see, this is a really tough, thick sinew. That's like a leather belt, and people tend to keep that on because they want to cook it with the fat. And what I would suggest to do is pull this fat off, and this fat is really, really important. This is going to give you the flavour, and it's going to give you the fat you require to cook this. But what we don't want is this sinew, right? Because you might remember ordering a sirloin in a restaurant and you get that really tough bit that you kind of push to the side. It's a real pain. So what I love to do is slice this up into little chunks, and what we can do is make crispy bits and render it down. So instead of putting butter or oil in this pan, we're going to cook the steak in the steak fat. And then here, get the knife, and I'll just skim off that tough piece of sinew. And honestly, that's as tough as old boots, and you'd have to stew that for 4 hours to make that tender. So we'll get rid of that. So as the fat comes up, can you see how it's getting crispy? Then I'm going to put in here a couple of cloves of garlic. I'll leave the skin on, and that will flavour the fat as well. So that's really, really exciting. And then season that with lots of nice black pepper, and then some sea salt. Pat that in, and then just roll it around the board to pick it all up. So what I'm doing here is going for one thicker steak for 2 people. And by having a thicker steak, that means that we can get that lovely golden outside and still cook it medium, medium rare. So often when you go to the supermarkets, one of the challenges is they cut the steaks very thin to make it a portion, and that makes it really hard to cook, you know, nice and juicy and blushing. I'm gonna wash my hands. You can see it's starting to sizzle now. You can see it getting golden, all the crispy bits. Crispy bits are the best. As that's happening, I'm gonna use spring onions and chilies to kind of cook and char in the steak juices to make the most amazing red chimichurri. Really delicious. So, 2 lovely chilies. Run your knife down the length of the chili like that. They're normally sort of medium hot, but by scraping away these seeds, you're cooling it down massively. Go in with those halves of chili, and then I've got a bunch of spring onions here, right? So I've just given them a wash and given them a trim, and they go in as well. So all of this happens in the same pan. Chimichurri from Argentina and Uruguay would typically be parsley, oregano, vinegar or lemon, olive oil, garlic, and you'd use it in basting meats or finishing. And by kind of scalding and charring these spring onions and chilies, I'm adding a different dimension to my version of a red chimichurri. Let's do the sauce part. Typically, with a chimichurri, you just chop it on a board. But I want to use a liquidizer. I'm going to take the chili, half of the spring onions go in there, and then the garlic. I'll just remove that skin. And you see how the garlic just comes out of the skin like that. I'm going to take a little, half a bunch of parsley. Also, I'm using these jarred peppers. They're sweet, they're roasted, they're peeled, and the flavour from these are amazing. Half a jar, in that goes. Now, take those splits of spring onion and crispy bits off. We'll put those to one side. In the pan now, we have lovely natural beef fat. So that is when our steak goes in. So we're going to cook the steak in steak fat. When you're pan frying a steak, do it a minute on each side until it's cooked to your liking. So whether it's well done, medium rare, whatever you like. So I'll do a turn now. For me, medium rare is what I'm after, about 3 minutes on each side. But Jules likes it a little bit more than me, so I can give her the ends or meet her halfway. After 20 years of marriage, you know what the answer is. Meet them halfway. And what I love about this recipe, it's got a really nice flow. So as that's happening, over here, put a nice little lug of extra virgin olive oil in there as well. And then red wine vinegar, pinch of salt and pepper. And that, whizzed up, is going to be amazing. Right. The sauce is done. Just keep turning the steak around. I reckon that's going to be about medium rare. I'm going to place that on top of the spring onions to rest. It's always nice to rest your steak. And a little bit of that steak fat we can just put on top like that, just to keep it nice and moist. So look, back to this sauce. And I've made more than I need for this meal for sure. But if you want to bag it up and freeze it, you can use this for so many different things. It's amazing as a dip. Let me just try a bit. Wow. You've got heat, but very gentle, really gentle. The parsley's there, it's fresh. You've got the fragrant garlic, and those sweet peppers is so, so good. I've got a nice big platter. I'm going to take some of this sauce straight on there like that. It's an amazing consistency. 3 or 4 nice big spoons. The steak here, I want to just slice it beautifully. About 1/2 centimetre thick. Oh, Jules is going to like this. Nice and blushing. That is exactly how my Jules likes it. Look at that, beautiful. Super juicy and really, really tender. Lovely spring onions. And then the crispy bits. Now, to go with that, I've put in the oven a beautiful sweet potato. Take the skin off. I'm just going to smash it up. You can do normal potatoes, of course, but that doesn't count as one of your 5 fruit and veg a day. This is actually a vegetable. It's delicious. I think the sweetness of this goes really, really well with the chimichurri sauce. And if you want to kind of get some of that parsley that you had earlier, you can just chop that through and you just make it a little bit fresher. A little season of salt and pepper. And I think this just makes a really nice thing to have with the steak. So smashed sweet potato in here. Right, little taste before I serve it to my lovely, lovely girl. Look, we got the steak here. And that, with the sauce, and let's get a crispy bit. Come on, crispy bit, come over here. It's gonna be a thing of joy. It is so tender. Cooking the steak in its own fat makes it really, really delicious. If you love steak, try that technique. And that expression of the red chimichurri is so good with the steak. Sweet, fragrant. The chili's really gentle. That sauce takes your everyday steak to the next level. The perfect dinner time sharing feast that people are just gonna love. Using a thick cut of ribeye steak, fresh rosemary, garlic, mushrooms, and a jar of cannellini beans. So look at this. Come on. A beautiful ribeye of beef. And there's a really, really important trick, first of all, that will save you in the realms of cooking the perfect steak. When you have little thin steaks like this, it's really hard, even for chefs, to cook it to perfection, to get it lovely and blushing on the inside and coloured on the outside. It's literally asking for trouble. So my advice is get a steak for sharing. Get a hunk, a chunk. And this is for 4 people, right? This is 600 grams of ribeye of beef. And the fat here, you can just get a knife and get in there and just take that off, right? We will use that. It's really important. So put that to one side and we're going to season the board. with sea salt, then loads of black pepper. So we take that steak and we'll just roll it in that seasoning. That's going to be the beginning of the bark. The bark is the intense caramelized part of the outside of the steak that gets your taste buds going. And instead of using any oil in the pan, let's use the natural fat. And this tastes so much better. It's got that concentration, that seasoning, that savouriness, that meatiness, right? So that goes into our pan as it heats up. And if you watch it, it's going to do what we call render, right? The natural fat will come out of that, almost like a melting candle. And it smells incredible. You'd never get that from any other oil. And that's the best beginning to the perfect steak. Flavour. So in we go with our steak. For me, what I love about this is, because you're looking after one piece of meat, you can cook it perfectly to perfection. Cooking 4 bits, you haven't even got enough space in that pan. It's quite stressful and it's expensive. You don't want to mess it up, right? This way, love, care, attention. Look at that. That's what we want.
Cook the steak for 10 minutes, keeping it moving. This is a foolproof method for the perfect steak. Time to crack on with the next 4 ingredients.
Rosemary. Brilliant friends with mushrooms and steaks, and this kind of concept of friends is really important. When you're taking 5 ingredients, they've got to be best mates. Then let's talk about mushrooms. Oh man, come on, look at that. Beautiful. And if you go to the supermarkets or markets, you'll get mixed boxes of mushrooms.
Use any kind of mushrooms you like, just choose your favourites.
Tear some, leave some whole, just pull them apart. And then 4 cloves of garlic, and I just want to peel them and slice them.
Prep done? Now check on your steak. After 10 minutes, it should be medium rare.
Look how soft that is. Can you see the dark golden bark that we've created? And it's still, you know, blushing and soft. So let's stop cooking this now. Look at that, right? And we're gonna let that rest.
The steak fat left in your pan is gonna quickly cook your next 4 ingredients.
And then we go in with our rosemary first. And you're gonna get this incredible fry. As soon as they go kind of crispy, we can take a little bit out, pop that on our steak here. And then to this, we can add our garlic. And then we're gonna go in with the mushrooms. And just tossing this around in the pan, just to make all that lovely garlicky rosemary fat go around the mushrooms.
Now, the mega time-saving element, the perfect base for your steak, cannellini beans.
Tin beans are fantastic. They're really, really brilliant value, but the stuff in jars is incredible.
Jarred beans are often cooked in a stock, so they add an instant hit of flavour.
600 grams here. Just literally chuck it in there. Little bit of water. And we're going to bring this up to a boil.
To finish, add a simple splash of red wine vinegar from your store cupboard and bring it to the boil.
The steak you can put on the middle like that, and then look at all these resting juices. Insane.
A super fast treat for 4 people and all done in one hit. A real centrepiece in next to no time at all.
I love taking it to the table in the pan. There's something really, really kind of chilled out and relaxed about it. Just slice it up. You can see that's just been cooked blushing. What you'll notice when you slice it up, it goes a long, long way. And all the flavour from that steak and the mushrooms has gone into those beans. Little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Here's the thing about cooking with 5 ingredients. It's quick and it's easy, but also it's really luxurious. It's lovely to share it. What a lovely kind of little ritual to cook and to serve. Brilliant.
The perfect show-off supper. Uncomplicated cooking to impress your friends where size really does matter.
Guys, this is for the ultimate steak. A blowout meal, something special for the weekend. This is a double steak, double thickness. This will feed 2 greedy or 4 people. We're gonna create an incredible crust, amazing flavor, and still get beautiful, blushing, juicy meat on the middle. This is taking steak to a completely different level. Let me show you how to do it.
This isn't about the everyday. This is about going the extra mile to create a weekend feast. Trust me, your friends and family will love you for this one.
This is the côte de bœuf. It's been French trimmed. That means the meat off this bone has been removed. It's got 2 different cuts within the one cut. So we've got this cap meat here, which is darker, it's delicious, it's sweet. It's the bit that I always fight over on a roast 4 rib of beef. Then you've got this eye meat here, kind of a little bit more like a tasty sort of sirloin of steak. Notice the intramuscular fat, right? This is a good thing. It means that that fat will melt and season and take care of that meat, and it means flavour.
To go with the ultimate steak, I want to give you the ultimate golden crunchy roast potatoes. Get yourself some Maris Pipers. I've tested loads of these and they're the best.
I'll just peel it with a knife, and that's what I want. A nice 2 squash ball sized piece of potato.
Parboil them for longer than normal, around 12 minutes, until they're almost a bit mushy. Drain and let them steam till dry for an awesome crunch on the outside and extra fluffiness on the inside.
Let's do it, let's cook it. So we'll preheat the tray and the oven to 200 degrees Celsius, 400 Fahrenheit. We're going to use 2 fats here. Olive oil, butter. That's going to give it colour and a lovely sweetness. Then we're going to go in with a really important herb to beef and potatoes, good old rosemary. Apparently an antidepressant, so we can all do with a little bit of that. One more thing, guys, to take it to that extra place. 1 bulb of garlic, no peeling, no mucking about, just give it a good old spank and into that fat.
Right, now you want to coat all the spuds. Give them a big fat herby kiss of love and a good sprinkling of sea salt. Bung in the oven for 45 minutes to an hour at 220 until golden and crisp. Now, time to cook up the steak.
So what I want to do is show you how to perfect the perfect steak.
First up, I'll give it a good rub all over with sea salt and finely ground black pepper. Beef loves pepper.
You want to get this out of the fridge an hour and a half before you cook it, because if I took you off a beach in Ibiza and threw you in the sea in Iceland, right, you'd be like, ah! And that's what that meat's going to do if you try and cook it like that from the fridge, right? So we want it to be nice and gentle. So in this pan, I'm going to add some oil. I'm going to go in fat side down. Let's get the fat touching the pan first. Let's get that fat rendering, and it'll also put more fat in the pan, which will kiss the meat later. I'm just sealing the steak at the moment. Then put it onto the face, just like that. Now you remember, we want to go for double steaks, right? Double steaks allows us the ability to create that bark, that crust, that flavour, that beautiful, beautiful look and feel, okay? You can't do that with a regular single portion of steak.
Cooking at the weekend is all about taking the time to create something special. So turn that steak every minute for perfect results.
Look at the fat dancing around here, okay? That's what we want. That's going to create that amazing flavour.
Next up, make yourself a herb brush. Any woody herbs will do. Rosemary, thyme, oregano. Get a wooden spoon out and tie up all the herbs with a piece of string.
Ah, flavour, perfume, care, simplicity itself. Absolutely gorgeous.
I like the beef medium rare, but my wife loves it just blushing. So I'm going to cook it for 6 minutes on each side. Once it's gnarly and gorgeous on the outside, give it a good baste with the juices from the pan and leave it to rest for 4 minutes. Now, an amazing tip to take your ultimate roast potatoes to a whole new level.
Get down to Boots. Go and get those funny little spritzer things that your wife buys to put things on her hair or on her face, or I don't know what the girls do with this stuff, and do something really real with it, right? We're going to plonk in some herbs, any spices, anything that gets your thing going, right? I want to fill this up with a kind of flavoured or spiced vinegar, cider vinegar, white wine vinegar. Even here, I've used chili and red wine vinegar, right? I have 2 or 3 of these hanging about, and when I'm roasting meats or potatoes, I pull it out when it's sizzling and put it back in the oven, and it gives it this little hidden, invisible something, right? This is proper secret stuff. I shouldn't be telling you this stuff. This is how we go the extra little level in the restaurants, okay? And that's what you get. When the potatoes are nearly done, spritz on that layer, back in, 30 seconds, dehydrates, sticks to it. It's going to be subtle, don't worry. I'm not talking like fish and chips, but there's going to be that little bit of something on the little bit of crust, on that little bit of roast potato that just punches you in the face and goes, Booyakasha! Shimon! Ow! That's what I'm talking about. Okay. Tell you what we're going to do, the next bit, we need to squash them. The ultimate roast potato needs to be squashed, okay? Get something flat on top, and we're just going to squash it. The fluffiness comes out, the crispy bit goes flat, so we're going to get more surface area of crisp and more fluff exposed.
Finish them off with another spritz of vinegar and a final sizzle in the oven.
Now it's time to slice up our steak.
Season with sea salt and mix some good quality extra virgin olive oil with the juices. Drizzle all over the steak to keep it lovely and moist. Juicy steak, the ultimate roast potatoes, and a fresh lemon and watercress salad. Now that's a proper weekend treat.
So look at that. Ultimate steak, but definitely not as you know it.
Right, I'm gonna make the best steak and chips on the barbecue, and that's the chips on the barbecue as well. And I'm gonna use it with my lovely homemade ketchup. I'm just gonna pick some rosemary. I just need a little bit of sage over here. Okay, I'm gonna do this incredible steak and chips, right? First of all, when it comes to steaks, my personal opinion is the best steak for the job isn't a fillet, it's not a sirloin, it's not a rump, it's the ribeye, right? Ribeye, brilliant. Inch thick, it's got the best flavour, it's still very tender. You have got that fat in the middle, and I was mucking about the other day, and there's an old technique for sort of making dry meat tender, and that's by getting fat, by literally pulling out the fat. If you just pinch it in your hands, what you can do is actually push it into the steak, like that. So really what you're doing is increasing the marbling and the flavour, and then you can get some nice bits of rosemary and just sort of break it up with your fingers, put it over the steak, and again, push it into where you've pushed that lovely fat. So when the fat is melting, it's melting with Uncle Rosemary around him and having a bit of a boogie-woogie. So in there like that. And then pepper. Pepper and steak, classic, in there like that, and salt as well. So the ribeye's good, and then I'm just gonna put that to the side, and then here, my grilled chips. Now, what I've done is I've got a nice, sort of slightly waxy potato. I've left the skin on, I've parboiled it sort of in centimetre slices for about 5-6 minutes, just to sort of take the sort of rawness out of the potato. So essentially they're 3/4 cooked, but they're holding their shape nice and strong. So what I want to do is get some rosemary, some sage, just tear it up, right? And then just get a little bit of lemon zest. Just use your knife or a speed peeler just to sort of take those lovely little bits of yellow skin off the lemon, and then some nice extra virgin olive oil. So get that in there. I want to lightly dress the potatoes in the olive oil, and a nice pinch of salt, and a nice pinch of pepper, and just get your hands in and just give them a lovely toss around. So we can get this on the barbecue now. Just lay them down like this, and you won't believe how quick and how lovely these end up being. And talk about something a bit different as well, do you know what I mean? So I've got that there. I've got my steak. I'm just gonna literally put a little bit of olive oil on the steak and pat it. I don't want loads of oil, just a little patting of it. And then this is ready to cook. Get it on that barbie. Let's just turn this over here. Look at these chips, man. This is great. Really, really good. So what I'm gonna do is, while these are cooking, I'm gonna make a lovely flavoured oil. I'm gonna do it slightly different to usual. I'm gonna get myself a nice little bunch of rosemary. You could use thyme, you could use sage, you could use bay. Get something heavy and blunt. Could be like the handle of a knife or a pestle and mortar thing. And then I'm just gonna put it into a bowl like this. Get yourself some oil, because that will transmit the flavour of the rosemary. Get your lemon. Just squeeze a little bit in there. And I'm just going to turn this steak. Look at that. Delish. And then you use this as a little bit of a sort of paintbrush, really. And you just use this to sort of flavour. Get that, you know, sort of caramelised cookie, sort of lemon oil flavour over your chips. Beautiful. I think we're ready to go.
get my lovely potatoes, the most incredible barbecued crisps. And then nice bit of steak. Let's have a little feel up. Yeah, that's about medium, like that. Little Wodger Rocket. Delish. And then get our lovely ketchup and then just get it in there. What a dish. That has got to be one of the best. And doing this lovely ketchup is a perfect excuse to sort of cook something as everyday and lovely as steak and chips, but with a nice little twist. And that is superb, mate. Oh yes, we are going to do the most amazing beef Wellington. For two, blushing, beautiful beef steak, surrounded by gorgeous outer mushroom filling, crisp golden pastry. Welcome to the world of beef Wellington. A lot of people get freaked out about doing beef Wellington for 10 or 12. It's a big thing, it's very expensive, but if you break it down for two, you can manage it. And it all starts with a beautiful chunk of grass-fed beef fillet. 250 grams. This whole procedure is about celebrating that. So what's the most appropriate herb for beef fillet? Rosemary, an absolute classic. Just run your knife through the rosemary, season it up, then get your fillet steak and just roll it and fold it. That is nicely coated. We're gonna go into a hot pan with a little olive oil, a good knob of butter, a couple of cloves of garlic, and as soon as that starts sizzling up, we go in with the steak. Oh yeah, keep basting it. Just a minute and a half of searing. That'll be completely rare on the inside, so let that cool. And then all this fat has done its job, so we'll get rid of that. We're gonna make a mushroom duxelle, which is basically a mushroom pate. This, wrapped around the beef, is a thing of absolute beauty. So I'm gonna roughly chop a nice red onion. And then straight back in the pan with a fresh little drizzle of olive oil, a small knob of butter, absolutely lovely. So let's talk mushrooms, guys. The great thing about this dish is you could use the cheapest mushrooms or the most expensive, and this is still absolutely sublime. So look, I need 250 grams, which is about that much. Then with the onions, I'll put the smaller ones in whole. Button mushrooms, I can just crush in my hand. Look at that. Season with salt and pepper. Don't forget, we've got the garlic. If you just squeeze it out of the skin, we can put that straight back in here. Now, if you want to pimp it even more, then dried mushrooms are key. These are porcini. You need a tiny amount, literally 3 will make all the difference. Put these in a little glass. Just put some hot water over the top, and the flavour extracted is like a massive fungi stock cube. And just go in with these soaked mushrooms. I'll keep back a little bit of that water for my sauce later. We can also put in any resting juices from our steak. And at this stage, we're gonna wazz it up. Now, you can do this by hand, but I find food processors get that nice pate-like consistency. Lid goes on, and we'll have a little whiz up. Right, the duxelle is done. Next, I'll show you how to make pancakes. An absolute classic part of this dish to soak up any excess juice out of the beef fillet. So in here, we go with the 1 cup method. So grab yourself any cup. We're gonna do 1 milk, that goes in. We're then gonna go with 1 cup of self-raising flour. Lovely free-range egg goes in, 100 grams of spinach. So I want to add colour and flavour. So lid on top and a nice little wazz. And in no time at all, you get this crazy green pancake batter that is so good. Add a little olive oil to a pan and simply go in with that batter, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. Once it's dried up on the top, you can simply just turn it over, give it 10 seconds on the other side. So there we have one lovely vivid green pancake. So let's bring this together now. We've got the beautiful steak, the mushrooms, this amazing pancake. I'm gonna use this lovely little technique, which is gonna help you build this incredible feat of gastronomy. So I'm gonna add my pancake. I want the heat and the aggression of beautiful English mustard. Go in there with like a teaspoon and a half, boom. So you'll get that color and that heat, and then we'll take the mushroom. So we want just under a centimetre of this incredible mushroom paste. Just spend a little bit of time evenly moving this around. And then once you've done that, we're gonna grab our lovely steak, place that in there like that, and then we're gonna take one corner and another and bring it up. And then if you just twist it The action of doing that, squeezing out the air, just gives you this perfect little kind of sphere. And that, my friends, is going to sit inside your pastry, and it's going to be phenomenal. Right, next we want the pastry. So I'm using lovely all butter puff pastry. So I can take this, place it on here, I can use my knife and sort of just trim it up like that. So we can take that off, and then I can place it on the pastry. And then I want some egg wash. Just go around the edge like that. So think of it like edible glue. We're gonna lay this over the top and just rotate it. It's just almost like tucking it into bed, right? What I want to do is just kind of trim around the edge. So now, egg wash this. That is more than perfect enough to whack in the oven, but oh, no, 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 no. I want to do this for someone very special. So I'm going to go the extra mile. Roll out a chunk of pastry. I only need half. I want to show you a little technique that's kind of fun. So get a little knife and do little inch slices with a little centimetre gap. When it comes to the second line, we're going to go an inch slice, but we're going to go within the gap, like that. Now, they call this a lattice. This is an optional extra I absolutely love. Take your pastry and give it a little shake, and something beautiful will happen. I'm just going to trim off the excess. Use your thumb and forefinger and push down that edge and have a pinch. Who would have thought a few scores and a few pinches could be so effective? We're going to cook it in a preheated oven at 220 degrees Celsius for 25 minutes exactly at the bottom of the oven, so you get a crispy bun. Plenty of time to knock up a delicious onion and thyme gravy, finished off with a cheeky glass of port and that leftover porcini liquid. Simmer away until thick and shiny, and you'll have the perfect partner for your beef Wellington. Ho, 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 ho. Look at that. Gorgeous. It is a thing of utter beauty. Get a sharp knife, commit to the middle, carve down all the way to the bottom, and then the moment of truth. Oh, yes! Come on, man, look at that. Let me introduce you to your new best friend. Beef Wellington for two. Gorgeous. And just add that sauce so it surrounds that Wellington. Happy days. Right, I'm gonna go straight for the middle. Oh, it's so crispy. Right down to the bottom. Right, let's do it. Oh, wow. The beef fillet is so tender. That incredible mushroom duxelle. The pastry's crisp, it's really special, and every now and again, you deserve something special with someone you love. Right, I'm gonna do something a little bit out of the ordinary. I've got my beets, I've got the beetroot leaves, a bunch of rosemary because it surely can't hurt, and I just want to slightly stop the direct coals from really scalding the beets. Put the beetroot leaves around it. Really simple. Cover it around the beets and just pinch it like a Christmas cracker. Like that. Once you've got it like that, just get yourself a little knife and just prick into it, because I want the smoke to go through. Right, and check this. Get a load of your coal, make yourself a little hole. It's really hot, white hot. Little hole there, beetroots go in. Oh! Try not to burn yourself. And then coals on top. If you didn't want to do it on the barbecue, you could put them in an oven under a grill and just blacken them all over, and you'll get a charred flavour, which is still delicious, but you won't get the smokiness. And that's it. Leave it for about half an hour, 40 minutes, put your knife in, check. When they're soft, happy days, we can start cooking. Delish. All right, bro.
Oh, yeah.
I've just put some incredible beetroots on the barbecue. Have you ever blackened beetroots?
I haven't, no.
Really good. I'll let you have a little try if you want.
Yeah, definitely.
What are you up to, planting some beets?
Yeah, I was just filling in a bit of a gap here. We've taken some of the brassicas out. And,
Yeah.
You've had so many of the beetroot, I need to keep on top of it.
Yeah, we have eaten a lot. I do apologise,
Yeah.
but they're too good. You brought these on in the lean-to?
That's it, yeah.
You could do that next to a good windowsill with a bit of sun, could you?
Yeah, good sunny windowsill. Very easy to grow.
Do you cook them much at home?
Occasionally, yeah, but I normally just do them quite simply, boil them, peel the skin and eat them. I can't wait sometimes.
Yeah, bit of salt.
Yeah.
So eat the stalks?
Yeah, eat the whole thing.
Yeah, and the leaves are
the
fantastic,
leaves,
aren't
really
they?
good.
Bit of oil,
Yeah.
bit of garlic, a few wet, washed sort of beet leaves.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and finish this little dish. If you want, you can have a bit later.
Okay,
Try
yeah.
these blackened beetroots, they're
okay.
incredible.
I'll just finish these quickly.
All right,
and
mate.
Be with you.
Right, so in here I've got my beets, and let's just pull these out. All the rosemary that I put in and the actual beetroot leaves sort of did protect the beetroot a bit, but they've still charred, they've still burnt, and the truth is, that's what's supposed to happen. I've got a fair bit of work to be done here. If you've had some that actually have caught a little bit, like this old fella, you know, you might have to sort of cut it out a little chunk. This golden one isn't too bad. That must have been sandwiched in the middle, but it will have all the flavour still. This old fella, sometimes you can just peel the skin off like that. Lovely. So a little bit messy, but it's well worth it. So get a nice bowl, cut your beets into sort of like erratic little chunks, you know. You can see inside they're still absolutely beautiful. And I want to kind of cut them into sort of, you know, reasonably rustic sort of chunks, so halves. You know, the smaller ones can either be whole or just halved. And this one I'll just slice into quarters. So you've got wicked flavours in there. So now, I'm going to dress this little monkey, and I'm going to dress it with good red wine vinegar, about a tablespoon, and some pepper, salt, beets, they do like a bit of salt. Good extra virgin olive oil, 3 tablespoons. Lovely colours. Now, I want some freshness in there. I want fresh herbs. So I've got some tarragon here, got some nice parsley. Just rip the parsley off with a little bit of the stalks, because the stalks are really sweet and delicious. The upper ones are anyway. And then sort of a nice little wodge of some tarragon. Roll it up a bit and finally slice it. So just slice it up like that. Run your knife through it a few times. And that is all we want to do to those beets. So once you've got it in there, just give it a really nice toss. Lovely, all nice and coated. Taste, taste, taste. Incredible. Smoked beetroots, man, they rock. Really, really good. So, and then what I want to do is I've got 2 little lovely medallions of beef, some salt, some pepper. Oh, Mr. Pepper loves steaks. Get the bottoms done too. Right, I will get a little bit of my excess oil from here and pour it over my steaks. Just, you know, just to pat it all over. We don't want it to stick to our bars. And then a bunch of rosemary on the barbie. And this old fella can go on top. Any excuse to get flavour in, do you know what I mean? Charcoal, bit of burning rosemary, top drawer. So while these steaks are cooking, they'll only take a minute and a half because they're only about 1.5 centimetres thick. I'm just going to make the quickest, loveliest little sauce. Cottage cheese. And what I actually want to do is take something quite sort of plain, bland, and just pour in about 4 tablespoons of extra virgin, good extra virgin oil, just to sort of break it, to sort of cut it. Tiny pinch of salt, bit of pepper, lemon zest, right? Nice, about half a lemon. Cut it in half, whole lemon going in there. Just going to turn these steaks. And while that's going, I want to get lovely thyme tips. And this is lemon thyme as well, so delish. Just pinch it off in there. Lovely thyme tips. Everyone says they're sort of woody herb, they're for roasting and stuff. You get the little new growth and the little tips, and they're always lovely. Fold it through a bit more. Beautiful. And then, so get your lovely beets onto the plate. They just look great. I'm just loving these colours. Here we go. And then you get your special bit of clotted how's your father, and that is just a great little dish. I'm gonna let Brian have a little go on this. He will love it. And if you want, just finish it with a little bit of quality oil. And that is a good one, mate. That is top.